This is music, and this is death metal. Welcome to a regular episode of Tapeworm Terror. In this episode, we're going to have a look at Cultist's Pillars of Flesh. This is a Dying Victims Productions release, and I really love Dying Victims Productions cassette tapes. I mean, they make them sound good, obviously, but they also make them look good. And I really appreciate that. Now, this one here is a bit more modest when it comes to actually the graphics, as you'll see in a couple of seconds. We're dealing with death metal, so that is nice, but let's first have a look at the J card and the cassette shell. So the J card looks like this, but you actually have to sort of look at it horizontally, because that's the artwork. And one thing I like is that the logo and the title are a bit off center. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but I think it's kind of fun. And this really dark and atmospheric cover artwork. There's kind of like a ghostly figure as well here, maybe the Grim Reaper or something. Pretty cool stuff. Here, of course, you have the title and the awesome Dying Victims Productions logo. You have contact details. So yeah, if you want to check them out, go to facebook.com/ and then Cultist Metal, and they're worth checking out, I'll say. Anyways, and then you have track list. As you can see, 6 tracks, so it's a bit of an EP or mini album. And you got a band photo here. Unfolded, you have the lyrics, and this is what the other side looks like unfolded. The cassette tape shell itself is very modest, as I said, in terms of graphics. You do have this cool logo and the title, but you don't have all the other stuff that you see on a lot of Dying Victims productions. This is just what side B looks like. And yeah, so pretty sort of simplistic and tasty, I would say, in terms of the graphics. Musically, yeah, we're dealing with death metal, and it kicks right into the style of death metal from right from the beginning. The first track is called Spreading the Curse, and then it, from there goes into Bleeding Eye. Got a song called Chasm. Of course, you have Unspeakable Cults, Abomination, and Infected Flesh. So it sounds very death metal-y as well, title-wise. Yeah. So yeah, very consistent in terms of the style. But what kind of style of death metal are we dealing with? I would say we're dealing with very old school death metal. I hear a lot of influence from, like, early Pestilence, maybe Abomination, Death Thrash, Master as well. That sort of death, maybe a tiny bit of very early death as well. So, very, very sort of old school early death metal style, which almost kind of borders on thrash metal. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call it death thrash. I would call it death metal, but it sort of just, goes back and looks at death metal from the early days when it was kind of thrash metal that had become so extreme that it became death metal. I guess you know what I mean. So you got some really cool old schools, just death metal guitar figures. You have some really chunky riffs every now and then as well, which is nice. And I really, really like the guitar tone. And the bass also has a slightly distorted tone, and that really goes very well with the guitar tone. And the drums sound good production-wise. Generally, they are played very well, but there are times when it seems like they're just on the verge of falling apart at the seams. And I guess it's on purpose, because it does create kind of like an authenticity and an underground feel as well. It's not the case that it's raw production or anything like that. The guitar tone is actually has a punch to it. The guitar tone is quasi thrashy as well, I would say. But that's to be expected, I guess. So all songs on this one are just really good old school death metal. The vocals are not your guttural growls. They're not your deathy screeches either. They are also kind of death thrashy, right? So they're harsh, but not extremely guttural or extremely screechy. So they are actually also kind of the same quality as what you hear on a master release or on a early Pestilence album or something like that. So if you like your early Pestilence, if you like just your old school early death metal with lots of kind of thrashy elements as well, and you don't mind drums that sound like the drummer is struggling a little bit every now and then, do check this one out. It's worth it. I really enjoy listening to the 6 tracks on this one. Check it out. Cultist, Pillars of Flesh. Authentic, kind of old school. I mean, authentic in the sense that it's not from back then, but it looks back and takes the authentic tropes and features of very early death metal, and so I guess it's new wave of old death metal. In any case, great stuff. Check it out. Thanks for watching.